speakers. And then tonight, if you're hanging around, if you're here for one more night, there is a Super Bowl party at the Angler and Ale restaurant, which is the first one as soon as you pull into the resort here. It's the first restaurant you see there. So there will be a Super Bowl watch party starting at 6. I think kickoff is at 6:30. If you are, go Bears, yeah. If you are leaving and driving north for whatever reason, be aware of what you're driving through. So plan your exodus appropriately. So without further ado, we have Joe Caparatta here. Joe's going to be talking about the in and outs of an aquarium store. Lessons learned from a seasoned professional and tales and tips of running an aquarium retail and service company in New York City. So if you guys don't know who Joe is, and my notes are all over the place, so did I lose my notes? I'm still a little asleep too. It's Sunday, so I'm trying. So if you guys don't know Joe, Joe is he's the owner and runs a retail maintenance company in Manhattan, in New York City itself. If you've never been to New York City, you can barely walk there. Better yet, get stuff around the city. And he started Manhattan Aquariums. Yep. Aquariums, right?
Manhattan Aquariums.
Yep, Manhattan Aquariums there. And how long ago? You guys been there quite a long time.
2005, I opened the store.
Okay. So that, and it's hands down probably the biggest service and maintenance company in the city, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, I would imagine. I couldn't name another one.
There's some big competitors. Yeah,
okay, all right. But anyways, if you've never been to New York City, it is one of the busiest cities in the world. And Joe and I were talking last night about some of the unique challenges of doing service in a city and stuff. And hopefully you're going to get to it today because it is really interesting. But he is a Joe of all things. So not only is the owner there, he's also the owner of Unique Corals, which is a wholesale and retail facility in Southern California. Inevitably, you've heard of Unique Corals. We're going to be giving away some gift certificates there. And he's also the co-owner of Marco Rocks, who we've talked about all weekend long. A lot of presentations talked about Marco Rocks and collaborations with Marco Rocks. So Joe's everywhere. If you're doing something in salt water, you're doing something with something that Joe's touched. So Joe, please take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, for coming here Sunday morning. This is an awesome show. I wanted to thank Waterbox for putting it together. This is what a show is supposed to be like. Not too many people, not too many outsiders, people that want to enjoy each other, hang out together, break bread together, and learn from each other. So perfect opportunity, and thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me. Did I hit? We got the first slide up, right? Hold on. I'm good? Okay. Okay. It says a little about me? Perfect. Okay. So there's a few different angles I could approach this from. There's people that are first-time hobbyists, first-time getting their first aquarium, and then there's seasoned professionals, and there's people that have a store. So, I could do 3 or 4 different types of talks, so I'm kind of just melding it into one, and there's going to be little tidbits, and it'll be fun for everybody. But a little bit about me, I've always been into aquariums. Started working in a fish store at the age of 13, rode my bike there every day after school, got paid $3 an hour, and at the end of every week, I would owe my boss money because I only got 20% off fish, and I bought more than I could earn. But I was drawn in. It was a passion. I loved it, and my boss at the time, I think he recognized it, and he really coached me like a second father almost. So that was 1987, and I never stopped working in fish stores through high school, through college. I would come home on the weekends and service aquariums. 2001, I started New York Aquarium Service. 2005, I wanted a retail store, and I'll get into obviously a little bit more. 2012, Unique Corals, then Triton US, and then I joined Marco Rocks with Mark. And now we have a few other exciting things that I'll share with you guys. So that was me at the age of 4, and it's kind of tells the picture. I haven't stopped touching marine life. That was me at 13. I'm going to blast through a little bit of history, just to give you some background. I want it to be more like a story than a talk. I had a problem. I had an addiction with fish tanks, and I knew I wanted to work with aquariums, but there was no real role models. There was there was Neil Patrick who owned Petland Discounts, but aside from that, there wasn't like heavy hitters that you could really look up to emulate, to try to create a career to model after. And when you go to family members or people in the community, whatever, you tell them you want to work with fish tanks, like, oh, well, you could do that, but get a real job. So it was a little bit of an uphill battle, a little bit of a struggle. There was, well, I'm not even going to get into that. So this was the first tank that I serviced right here. This is a tank, this woman, her husband had a stroke. She told me if I came to her tank after work, she would give me $20 to clean her fish tank. So I would ride my bike there, service the aquarium, and I made more in that 1 hour servicing that aquarium than I would in like 4 or 5 hours of work. So I knew there was something there, but it was still, I was 15 years old, and I didn't really have the vision then. But I just kept doing what I do, like a lot of you people, just get more tanks, more into it, keep learning. This is my first saltwater aquarium, a 100-gallon aquarium. This is in like 1988, something like that, 87. My bedroom turned into a miniature fish room. And I was on the second floor, and I would have leaks, and the water would drip down. My parents were amazing, and they tolerated it. My mom way more than my dad, but he had to repair the floor and the walls and radiator a few times. But I would build stuff in my room. I'd put together, the filtration behind the aquarium so it would trickle down. And back then you could buy filters. You could buy in a Miracle Wet Dry, or you can go to Home Depot and get some drain PVC pipe and put the same concept together for $15, $20, $30. And I just love to tinker with things. So my first reef tank, to really get the type of lighting you needed, you had to build your own canopy. So you'd foil the inside of a wooden canopy and you'd wire it together. You'd buy the fluorescent end caps and you put 40 or 30 watt bulbs inside it. Undergravel filters. This was, a very basic aquarium, but 1989, this is what you have. And then a couple of years later, I got a 92 corner tank, and I never turned back. I used to keep extensive notes on everything so I could reflect back and learn from my mistakes. I kept a journal. I kept all of the logs, the pH, the salt water, if I bought a fish, if I sold a fish, if a fish died, why it died. I have all these books, just pages and pages of notes. And I would sit there and I go through it and try to learn. And I recommend people do this today. You don't have to do it on paper, but use technology. This is, again, just more pictures down memory lane. Some of the first dosers we had were the ESV dosers. You'd preset the amount of liquid inside a little container, and then when the air pump would turn on, it would displace the liquid with air, and that's how you dose your 2-part in the early 90s. I took any job I could get when I started servicing aquariums. This one was horrible. I'd have to stick a little hose inside it, drain it, pull it out, clean it, push it back in. But you don't turn down work when you're trying to get out on your own and do work. And then some of the jobs are really big. This is a job we did with Living Color. This was in the mid-90s, and this guy, ton of potential, really nice guy, until he owed me $20,000, and then he got arrested. He went to jail for fraud, and he was doing all kinds of shady stuff in the stock market. He was just lying and stealing from people. Anyway, so I got burned by about $20,000. I called the New York Post and New York Times, and they did articles on it, and I got a few accounts from it. So there's always a silver lining to it. I knew early on that, I was working in fish stores. I was servicing aquariums on the side. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was going to college, studying marine biology. But I knew that there was no role models, and if people were paying me $75 to clean a fish tank, and I could do it in an hour, I could fill my schedule and make a good living. So it didn't matter what anybody said. It didn't matter what my aunts and uncles or my parents said. The numbers were there. It made sense. And I held on to that, and I knew that as long as I did right and I had positive cash flow, I could build this business. There was no internet back then, and you basically learn from your mistakes. One mistake that stuck out is I would take any job I can get. A person came into the store I was working at, and they wanted a pond. So I brought this prefab pond thing and took my shovel. I'm like, yeah, I could do a pond. Dug a hole in the ground. I came across this black plastic pipe under the ground. I don't know what this is. Cut it, throw it out, put the pond in, fill it up with garden hose. 3 days later, the guy calls me up. He's got like a sinkhole in his front lawn because that was his main sprinkler feed. So when the timer turned on the sprinkler feed and I went through it with the shovel, it just filled up underneath the ground and created a huge, huge headache. So he had to redo everything. Of course, he fired me. But that's how you learn. I didn't know that sprinkler systems were put underneath the grass. Who would have known? But then I got better. I started doing better jobs and ones that were above ground. So my dad helped me do the carpentry on this one, and we cut open their deck and built a little retaining wall with 4x4s, put a pond liner in it, and put the filtration behind it, and just started doing ponds. Typical aquariums, 92 corners, 135s. These were the tanks that paid my bills, paid my income, allowed me to go out and spend money on stuff. Would make filters for people. I had a 30-gallon tanks with Hagen 802 power heads. I had fun just drilling out all the holes in the acrylic and putting in the bio balls. So what I'm getting at is this, when you really have a strong, in-depth understanding for what you're doing, you're not just buying a filter and setting it up and going on YouTube to figure it out. There's nothing you can't do because you understand everything from the ground level up. And this really helped me in running the store and problem solving and trying to get to the bottom to understand things from the bottom up so everything made sense. It's like building a foundation in a house before you can get to the third and fourth floor. You have to start and have a good foundation. Another tank, these Tenacore tanks with the Simplicity Plus style filters in the back. I always wanted to put my own filters underneath, so I drill out the back, relocate the pump to the bottom, and glue together the acrylic together myself. Sometimes they would leak, but most of the time they're okay. I really understood at an early age the need for positive cash flow, not to go on credit. You can't spend $200 if you have $100, so I would always try to save up and then watch whatever I'd spend and just keep that cash flow positive. When I started hiring employees, I would give them a percentage of the job because I didn't want to take the chance of paying them by the hour, not having jobs for a few days, and all of a sudden I owe them more than I'm pulling in. So I paid them a little bit more, but they got a piece of it, and it was, again, positive cash flow. Started getting bigger and bigger aquariums. I moved into my first space in Long Island, and it took me about 4 or 5 locations before I could really justify a store in Manhattan. Manhattan is it's a little bit crazy to do business there. Everything from the sanitation to the police officers that want to tow your car to just everything. It's not the easiest place to do business in. So I really needed to make sure that I had a good business, a good foundation that could support that type of move. So I kept getting more and more accounts, working with architects, working with designers. I also realized that in order to scale, I needed to grow and push more responsibilities onto my staff. So I realized early on that we fill our days with stuff to justify our own existence. We're in a business, I need to do this, I need to do that. But if you take a step back and you look at what you did yesterday, and you kind of break it down by the hour or every 30 minutes, you can see, well, that task I could have assigned, I was telling Scott this earlier, you could assign this to a staff. And the feeding of the fish, well, yeah, I'm the owner, but I don't really need to feed the fish. I could train someone to do that. I could train someone to do this. I could train someone. All of a sudden, you look back and I could have cleared up 80, 90% of my schedule. Well, if you attack your next week's tasks with that same mentality, you can really free yourself up. And as an owner, in order to work on the business and build it, you can't be there holding it together. You can't be the spokes holding the wheel together. And I get it, it's fun to be part of our business and to enjoy it and be passionate. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you really want to grow and expand, you can't be, you have to create a well-balanced, a well-oiled machine that runs itself. And you're the guy with the oil that's able to put the oil when it needs it. And of course, nothing should be beneath you. If you got to go in and push the broom or take out the garbage, there's nothing you can't do. And staff will realize that and follow you. So I always tried to identify a goal. I knew I didn't want to be servicing aquariums. It was not glorious, scrubbing algae, getting yelled at sometimes by housewives or just anybody. You got to get out of my house. I got a family coming. The fish are dying. I mean, you can imagine all of these years doing service in Manhattan, and they would sometimes treat you like garbage, like you're an animal. So that was not fun. But I knew that I didn't want to be exposed to that for so long, and I knew I needed staff. And I tried to incentivize pay structures that allowed me to constantly work on the business and on the bigger picture. But also, I realized that when you're servicing aquariums, you're building a relationship with the client. And if I hire people to go service the aquarium, they're now replacing me with that relationship. And in Long Island, where most of our accounts are residential, that relationship was a lot. And when an employee wants to leave, especially if they're a good employee, it's very easy for them to take your accounts. Even if they sign a non-compete, it usually doesn't hold up, and most bosses or people don't try to enforce it. So I knew I had a problem, and I wanted to focus in New York City on corporate accounts, kind of like a cleaning service. You're a big building or a bank or a medical center, you have a cleaning service. You just want to know that when you call, they show up, and when that bill comes, you write the check. You don't really care who comes. So that was the mindset that I knew I had to create so that I'm not stuck servicing aquariums my whole life. So I sold a lot of my Long Island residential accounts, and I focused on the city, and I really targeted corporate, high-end residential where that bond is not so important. And I think that's one of the things that allowed me to have like 200 accounts in the city with a whole bunch of people and not worry so much about staff taking my accounts. And the few accounts I did get in Long Island, a lot of them, well, at times did get taken. Okay, so I'm going to jump around a little bit. This is a Waterbox tank. This is a nice installation. I'm going to show you some of the other New York stuff and then the store. But this is an installation that we just did recently, actually. It's a Waterbox 230.6, and we've got a lot of really nice stuff. And then I'm going to show you a quick little video about how we put it together. And this is also for the people watching online. This is what you want to see. How to take a Waterbox and actually, if you want to relocate the filtration to another room, there's nothing wrong with the Waterbox filtration. I love it. In fact, my home tank is going to have all the filtration underneath. But this client had a dedicated room underneath the floor, and he wanted an oversized filter, an oversized skimmer. You just can't do that inside a stand. So I put together the filtration. We drilled through his floor. We customized all the sumps. Really enjoyed drilling and doing everything. This was the finished product of the filtration. We had Dave Botwin, Oh Too Many Fish, build a GHL mission control center, we called it. And this is kind of what the finished product looks like. There's 2 different boards, and the system runs. It's silent and works flawlessly. We've got Ecotech Radions on there. The tank is doing great now. And now I'm going to show you a quick little video. Is it playing? More volume. You know what? I think the volume. Nice and neat, and the right side looks just the same. I want to keep this video kind of short and show you the magic downstairs, but there is one thing on here. If you notice, on the Waterbox, there's a valve to pressurize the drain to keep it silent to work as an overflow, siphon overflow. So what they did is we left this completely open, and we put a new valve downstairs to pressurize this line. You always want to try to pressurize as low as you can so you build up water in the tube versus air that could then create some noise. And then the other one is just the emergency. We're still tuning it too, but this tank was silent when we got here. And we made some adjustments downstairs, so we'll get it even quieter when we leave. So we ran the plumbing through the ceiling. Ceiling comes along, everything's strapped, and then this is an advanced acrylics PVC with acrylic front setup, similar to the Dreambox but a lot cheaper. It's got a Bubble King skimmer. Basically, I'll run you through what we did here. We've got the 2 lines coming down. This is now the pressurized drain. So these are all Spears gate valves. This is what we adjust to get the water level the way we want it, and then below here you can play with these to send as much water as the CaribSea 5000 will take. And it just spun a little bit. So right now we've got all the water from the Abyss running through this, and then this is the emergency line that does not have a gate valve. Should there ever be a failure or anything, you don't want somebody to accidentally have that valve closed. And again, this is a little bit higher up in the overflow, so the siphon drain sets your water level and also determines the noise, and should that fail, the water comes down this drain right here. Right now we have no water going through this, but it was just something we put in as a backup in case, again, this can't handle all that water. We've got the emergency line, we've got the Bubble King skimmer running, and we've got 9 inches of water. This is set to 30 watts, which is what Scott Leaf recommends, ideal setting. We've got 2 Eheim heaters in the back of here, which are not plugged in yet. The only thing that's missing from this job is a custom GHL board. There's going to be a GHL controller with the sleeve and the Profilux and the doser and the cage guardian, all GHL hardware. That's what this client wanted. And that is being built by Dave, Oh Too Many Fish, and he's building us a nice custom board that'll mount right here on this wall. And then some of the extra supplies will go on a wall that's going to cover this phone cable. phone system. So the water goes through, standard affair. We've got a Varios pump running as the second pump. I like to do a main pump with nothing really teeing off of it, so you just have your main pump running the tank. Yep, it's an Abyss 200. And could have done 90-degree plumbing everywhere, but I really like to keep things efficient to a point where, you know, the aesthetics are important, but efficiency is the most important. So this is a single pass right into an RK2 80-watt UV sterilizer. And there's only one 90-degree fitting between the pump and the bottom of the tank. Everything is just a flex line straight in. And this is the bypass that's only used should we ever have an issue with this. We could shut this valve and shut that valve, typical UV bypass, but right now that valve is closed and all the water's going through the UV. Serviceable on the ends. Pull the tube out and then this just runs right up. The reason why this is 1 inch, it's not ideal, but the water box is a 1 inch, so you have to restrict it down at some point. The Abyss 200 really should have 1.5 inches the whole way, but again, we're working with what water box gave us, and that Abyss 200 is running at 80%, and it's as much flow as that tank can handle. So, and I like that we're not running at 100%. So we've got the return pump going through the UV and up. Then we've got a Varios. It's a Model 8 running into this custom little manifold we built with complete gate valve control on the 2 media reactors. These are the Ultra Reef ones that we sell. It's a bayonet style. So if you want to change the media on it, you don't have to shut anything off. You can leave your pumps working and you can change your carbon, your GFO right in the sink, and then you just pop it right back. We've got some service people out there that buy extras of these, and then when they go to a job, they just swap them. It makes it really easy. They're not cheap, but it's easy. And then that overflows. There's no GFO or carbon in here right now because we're cycling the system. In fact, we're about to shut the skimmer and the CaribSea off because we're going to add some Fritz Turbo Start bacteria to really get the system going. But we got the Varios going up into the manifold right now, running it at the 3rd speed, and that's plenty enough to run the chiller, which goes to this line here. And then the chiller line dumps back into your return pipe that's in the last section. And the reason we wanted that is we want the effluent to be past the intake so the slightly cooler temperature water doesn't get cycled back into the chiller and possibly cause some confusion in how the chiller stays on. So it's pumping from this side and all the water's going this way, and then the output is over here so the cooler water can get pumped back into the tank. So this is a pipe from the water change, which we'll get to in a little bit. So anyway, we got this manifold here. We got the twin running the GFO and the carbon. This leg does the chiller. Everything can be isolated should there ever be a failure. This line right here does the refugium fill. And then this is for the water change. So this stays closed, which it is now. And when we want to evacuate the sump for water change, we just open this valve. The refugium here, what we did, I'm going to actually turn on, this is an Illumagic freshwater light, and we've got a really cool little sensor over there. Nice. This is spinning Catomorpha. I used the Waterbox return nozzle that they give you, which is meant for their auxiliary manifold, but it's perfect because it's a high velocity and it's a nice restriction on it, so you can use a minimal amount of flow through the refugium. This is going to be a Triton method system, but we kind of change things around. Traditionally, you want your macroalgae to be in your first stage to have first crack of the nutrients, but since it's such an oversized system, and he's an old school reefer, it was kind of like a little back and forth on how we're going to set it up using traditionally proved methods and the Triton method. So I think we're going to have the best of both worlds, and with us maintaining it, the system's going to run great. And this is a really good size, it's like 35, 40 gallons, so we'll be able to pack this with macroalgae. And again, this dumps back into this last section. There is a liter meter automatic top off that is a precision control. And what this does is this pulls water from our auto top off tank. We drilled it and used a 1/4 inch acrylic rod, so it sucks from about 1 inch off the bottom. It pulls through the liter meter, dumps into there, and this is an ultra precise water level controller from SpectraPure, and that comes with the liter meter. And that'll, once you set it, it'll keep the water level exactly where you want it. Let's shift to the RO. We've got the bulk reef supply RO unit. It's got the sediment, carbons, the DIs, I think it's a 100 gallon per day unit. But first we run the water through a sediment filter, just a 5 micron sediment filter. Move this fan out of the way for you. So 5 micron sediment. And then it goes to this big chloramine monster. Ooh. And if you pre-filter the water before it goes in there, it's going to last a lot longer. And then from that, it goes into the sediment, the carbon, and all of that stuff. Then once it comes out of it, this is very important for those that are kind of new at plumbing up RO systems. When you use a SpectraPure unit, you want to install a T and then a 1 pound check valve. And the check valve will cause the water to want to go this way. Remember, water goes to the path of least resistance. So you put a little bit of back pressure on the line that goes to your water storage tank, and that'll force the production water to prioritize your automatic top off. This is way overkill. This is more water than we need. So we'll probably wind up just keeping the level here. In the event of a failure, should the ATO liter meter screw up, it'll only evacuate that much water. But anyway, we have it, and it's good to have. The product water will fill that up. That stays fresh water, so you don't mess with your salinity from evaporation loss. And then the rest of it goes into here, and this is calibrated again, advanced acrylics. John does some really good work, and we can dump our salt in and know exactly how much salt we're adding because we've got it all indicated on the side. The 80-20 aluminum we did ourselves. We just ordered that online. We cut it and fabricated it to fit our needs. Tried to make everything really tight here. We're in a basement, so we have to pump the water out of the basement with the slop sink. We also didn't want the wastewater from the RO to constantly make this slop sink work. So we ran the waste line up and out and followed the pipe out into the yard and tapped it into the drain. So it doesn't have to keep this pump on any more than it has to. The best way to control water filling this thing and the ATO so that you don't have any issues is to never rely on a float valve. You want to use something to shut the water on and off that's a little bit more reliable than a float valve. So your float valve becomes a secondary, and in this case we used a liquid level controller by SpectraPure as your primary shutoff. And what that is this solenoid right here. And this solenoid gets energized via a power adapter, and when it's energized, it's allowing water to flow through it. It also allows water to flow through it when the vacuum tube is out of water. So as soon as the water level goes up and submerges the bottom part of the vacuum tube, vacuum is sensed in this tube and it shuts off the flow of water. No water can no longer go past that. So we've got an LLC via the vacuum tube working here, and should that fail, there is a float valve in the back, a traditional 1/4-inch float valve, and that will be above the vacuum sensor. Should that fail, we've got a conveniently located sink, so it's silly not to take advantage of it and run a high tide line. We also put an LLC with a vacuum sensor in the sink in case somebody's filling or doing water change, or these things fail and the pump fails, the LLC will shut off the master RO switch. It'll just shut it off. A little bit overkill, but we did it anyway. There's an LLC on here as well.
Just hit escape. That.
Oh, questo chino. Presentation should open now. You can choose file open recent hallway. You know which one it is? There you go.
But how do we get the next?
Just start it. Just like.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I felt it was important to show that because really doing installations and setups like that is why I'm here. That's what built the store. The store was never modeled to be a full-on retail store. Only recently has it really grown its own legs and stood on its own. It was always doing installations, running around the city, and using the store as a platform to project our strength, to have it as a gallery to show potential clients. So I thought it was important to show that. We did a lot of really awesome jobs in the city, working with architects, designers, people. I want to get through these because I'm running out of time. Doing service and having a store in the city meant I could meet some really cool people. This is Tracy Morgan, Shark Tank. I did not install it. We don't maintain it, but now we're friends, so he invited me out there and my wife last year to go see it, and he brought us to a Giants game. He's got a box seat, so we went with him, saw the whole game. So, you know, one of the side benefits of having a service company is you get to be friends with a lot of cool people. In fact, Tracy, we used to do all the maintenance for Tracy for years, and we moved him from one apartment to the next as he grew as a celebrity. But one time his Piranha tank, he had a little all-glass aquarium with Perfecto lights on the top, and they caught fire, and the sprinklers went on, and he was in the Trump Towers on the Upper West Side, and it did hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage, and we showed up. The fire department was there. There was 2 inches of water on the floor, ruined so many apartments, but it wasn't our fault. It was an arc inside a faulty light. One of the things I like to talk about is a story with James Gandolfini. He came into my store once. James Gandolfini was the actor from played Tony Soprano. He came into my store once when it was during the season finale of that year. And he came in and he wanted to buy some fish. And of course I wanted to sell him fish, but he didn't know what kind of fish he had. So he walked to this tank and that tank and he pointed out the fish, and I said, "Jim, what kind of fish do you have?" And he says, "I don't know, my fish guy services the aquarium." I said, "All right, well, I can't sell you fish unless I know what you have, because there's a high likelihood that they're gonna fight and it's not gonna end well." So he called this fish guy didn't pick up. He hangs up, I mean, he's like, "So are you gonna sell me fish or not?" And I said, I can't, I really can't sell you fish unless I know what's in your aquarium." And he's like, "All right, I'll call you back, I'll be back." I said, "I'll deliver the fish. You point out ones you like, we'll make a list, and I'll gladly deliver them at no charge." So he called me later that day and he said, "I want you to be my fish guy." I was like, "All right, that's great." One of the little caveats is if you don't focus on the money in the spot, the money is just a byproduct of the value you bring to people. And it doesn't matter what industry, what business you're in. It's something I never focused on. I knew anything successful has to be long-term, and the only way to build something long-term is to not focus on the present. So building relationships, which are really molded out of trust, allows the money to just be a little transactional thing that happens. Kind of like at a doctor's office. The doctor doesn't give you the bill. Somebody else in the billing department does. So you form this relationship with the doctor that doesn't even focus on money. That was something I tried to emulate with a lot of my service accounts. I didn't want them to see me as the person going after the money, and also having a deeper understanding of what your client needs. A lot of people that service aquarium feel that they have to be competitive, whether it's pricing per gallon or pricing per hour, but you have to realize no 2 clients are the same. You could have somebody with a 200-gallon tank who they're worth $1 billion, the other one is worth 90,000. Their expectations are going to be drastically different. Same aquarium, 2 different clients. Why should your pricing be the same? This is not sizing up your client. This is sizing up their needs and expectations. So if you communicate with them and you understand what their needs are, and you jump when they call, or you answer the phone at 10 o'clock at night, or you show up on a Sunday for that client that's paying you for it, it's justifiable to charge them more, but you have to let them know that. And people with money expect that. They expect to pay more because they want more value. So break yourself out of the mold. Don't be, and this is again, any industry, don't just be somebody who's competing with your competitors, because what you're doing is you're reducing yourself to the masses. And if you want to be a common person and be like everyone else, then stick with that pricing model. But if you value yourself and your own time and the unique value you bring, then give yourself a unique pricing structure. Don't be afraid to grow slowly. It took me 5 stores until I could eventually get this store on the west side of Manhattan. Somehow it's like the last building standing. That's the vessel in the background. They've leveled everything in the city. In 2004, when I got this shop, it was just parking lots. There was nothing really going on over there. There was no foot traffic. The 7 line didn't run that far yet. There was no subway. And now it's crazy over there. There's shops, there's everything. And the city is going to be taking over our building. So we have a lawyer, and we're kind of going back and forth. And I will have to move probably by the end of the year, which kind of sucks, but I got a long run out of it, so I'm fine. But this is the store. We completely remodeled it. I wanted it to be like a gallery, something that people would come in and not have a sales register when they first walk in, not have pegboards with supplies. I wanted it to be inspirational. When you go into a really cool fish store or an aquarium, you're like, I need this in my home. And that's what I tried to bring to my customers. And then they buy some stuff, and on the way out, they get inspired once again on the way out. This was the second renovation to the store. We blacked out everything. We put new tiles in. The coral troughs, it was actually a 2 foot by 20 foot long coral tank, and I sliced it with a track saw, and made it 12 inches, and I took the top part and turned it upside down, glued a bottom on it, and made that the sump for our fish system. And then we had glass tanks. Again, just want to go through this quick. I'm almost out of time. Built a lot of the stuff, the bagging counters. I'm going to get into where the store is kind of at now. This is the 1,200-gallon tank that I wanted people to see when they first come in. This is a beautiful reef. It was 8 by 5 by 4 feet high. Gorgeous SPS tank. This tank is now at my house right now. It's not set up, but it's in my home office. This was a shot that John Ciotti took of the 1,200 when it was in its heyday. This is like 2010. This is an 8 by 4 by 2 planted waterfall tank that drips in the back, just a nice little waterfall. Beautiful planted tank, and that's the view from, we did move the cash register to the front just for safety reasons and whatnot. But you can see when people come in, they have the 1,200 saltwater, and then they have the planted tank there. There's Sean Hale from Fritz. He's like, dude, this is like Zen-like, so that was the image that I was going for. Now we have a Waterbox 72-inch Peninsula tank when you first walk in past the counter. It's got the 6-foot Illumagic light on it. We've got a beautiful like 800-gallon cichlid tank. Again, just trying to inspire people. Beautiful planted aquariums, so people can get, well, we sell a lot of plants now. Everything's 80-20. It's super strong. It doesn't rot. I recommend it. You can cut it yourself really easily with a chop saw. You can get all the hardware to put it together. You don't have to buy kits. You can just buy it in 10-foot lengths. Super strong, and it looks real good, and it's like impervious to salt water. The plants do crazy. To retain employees, things can change in an instant. I run the store now. In 2012, I moved to Los Angeles, and I kind of rolled the dice, and I let my staff run the store. I knew that when I would go on vacation, my staff could run the store. And how could that be? If I'm working 80 hours a week in the store, killing myself, but then when I go on vacation for a week or two, anything that came up, my staff could run it. So I started realizing that the only thing that I need to do to have the lifestyle I want and to expand is to not be there, physically not be there. You can't be there fixing a job if you're 2,000 miles away. So I believed in this, and I helped to train the people, and I don't want to take the credit. I had a lot of really good, dedicated, hardworking people. My staff there is still amazing. But they really kind of like stepped up, and they took care of it. It's like pushing a plane off a cliff. You know, you have enough momentum, and you believe in the lift, and it kind of just takes off. So with 180, 190 accounts and 20 employees, I kind of rolled the dice. And when I left, they were like, oh my God, you're leaving. Like, you're the reason why we come to work. But it really wasn't. You know, they're working because they're working. But I still kept that bond, and I built unique corals on the West Coast, and I went back and forth when I needed to. And now I have unique corals on the West Coast and Manhattan Aquariums on the East Coast. And I go back and forth from fish stores. This is our freshwater. This is a shot from the front of the store with the Waterbox tank. I love the tanks. Nice reef tank. This is a Red Sea tank with Illumagic. Sorry, I should have deleted that slide. I'm going to get some shit for that. You got to come here? You said, okay, good. It's too nice to take down. One of the things I want to leave you guys, you have to speak for the business. The business doesn't have a voice. The business doesn't have feelings and doesn't have emotion. But we as owners have feeling and have emotion, and a lot of our decisions are kind of primitive. We do what we think is best, but it's really emotion that's guiding it. You have to break that bond and speak and do what the business needs. Even if it doesn't feel good, even if sometimes it doesn't feel right, the business needs you to be its voice, because it can't say, hey, fire that guy over there, fire that girl, close a little bit early. It can't tell you these things. So you have to like see it as its own entity, and it really is its own entity. Again, passion guides your hand, and cash flow guides your decisions. Make a lot of decisions based on smart, sound, cash flow. Don't have a reef, like a beautiful reef tank. Here's kind of an idea of the feelings. Do you have a show tank in your store? Oh, it's a show tank. Now I can justify putting gem tangs and this coral and that coral and spend all this money. No, the average person that's coming in to buy a setup doesn't know what these expensive corals or fish are. They just want something nice to look at. So you're justifying what goes in that display tank based on your own feelings and wants, not what's best for the business. The business needs the money to be spent elsewhere, not on a $2,000 gem tank. Put a yellow tank, put a Royal Gramma, put some cheap flowing corals. That's going to sell more aquariums than that $200, $500 tenuous frag, because you wanted it and you could justify it because it's your show tank. That's what I mean, separating the two. Not even going to play this. This is a video of our basement showing all the used stuff, but I can show you after if anyone wants to see. One of the things that I recognize is in order to compete with the big box stores and the online entities, you had to align yourself with high margin brands. So Marco Rocks is something that I was selling and using, and I was friends with Mark for years. And I said, you know what? What better way to get the biggest discount is to join the company? So I bought into the company. I did that with a lot of other things. You have limited shelf space. Why not say, you know what, I'm gonna rep one chemical brand or one food brand and go to that manufacturer and say, I'm gonna clear my shelf and make it just Seachem or Triton, but I need another 10, 15% off. And you know what, if you're gonna do that for them, they're probably gonna do it for you. And now you have the margin to compete. If you're just a shill for the industry and you say, well, I need this food because I don't know if my customer's gonna want this or that, the customer's coming to you for advice. You are repping what you sell. And what better way to show the products than with successful reef aquariums? It's hard to dispute the success when they come in and see that beautiful reef tank and they say, what are you using on it? You put all your stickers, you say, this is what we use. If you want a product that's we don't sell, then go online. I mean, go buy it, whatever. But when you want advice or want to know how to fix it, we're here to help you, or for livestock. But most of the time, they're coming in because they don't know what they need. So you can sell them what you need, and you got to form those alliances with your partner brands. I did that with Triton, with Pax Bellum. I'm the U.S. distributor now for like 6 brands, and so all that stuff has to flow through us, and that's the best way to have your margins. My staff in New York couldn't do it without them. It's an old pick, but a lot of the people are still with me. Do whatever it takes to survive, never accept failure as an option. In 2008, the stock market crashed. All of a sudden, our line of credit went away. Credit card lines shrunk. I had no money. I couldn't even get, I actually got a little emotional when I told this at Macna, but I couldn't even get into the city one day. I was living on Long Island. I needed like $8 to get on the train. I couldn't come up with $8. I just couldn't. But somehow I did. I went through the change in my drawer and figured it out. I got to the city, and the whole way I was like, just had this adrenaline rush. And when I got there, I pulled all my staff. Some were joking in the corner. One person was doing this. And I grabbed everyone. I said, guys, it's now or never. Anybody that owes us money, and I was cursing, you call them up, we want that money. If they don't answer the phone, you go to their door. You knock on their door. I mean, I was joking around. I was like, in the bathroom, don't even waste the toilet paper. How many sheets you need? That's all you use. I mean, it got down to that, and we clawed our way back. We lost 30% of our customers when the market crashed in New York. And everybody put us on high alert and on a budget. They said, we're not buying any more fish. We just want the tank service. Some people made us dry the tanks out until the market recovered. Everybody was scared, and it hit New York City really hard. I mean, it hit the whole country, but we really got hit hard. And we came out the back end of that. And you value the dollar and way more after something like that. Really test you. I'm going to skip through some of this because I'm out of time. Look for the new horizons. Look for things that you can align yourself with and rep. And then I go into Unique Corals was founded in the basement of Manhattan Aquariums as kind of like a pilot test program. And then it got moved to Unique Corals facility in LA. This was the facility there, 6,000 square foot. Jake Adams actually took that picture. I bought these giant raceways, 6 of them, and I went big. Just 2,000 gallons each. Just filled with corals, importing corals instead of buying from LA. Now, first I was buying from wholesalers, and I wanted to get a better deal. So then I would fly to LA, try to get a better deal, and then I went to Australia and started buying direct, and that pissed everybody off. And now I own a collecting facility with Tim Kelly in the Solomon Islands. So now we're collecting and farming our own corals, and the first shipment comes in Tuesday. So that's really cool. Some of the corals that we're known for. This is the Unique Coral staff. This is our Christmas party this year. Again, can't do it without the staff. Can't do it without my wife. She's co-owner of my businesses too. And awesome. And having fun and being in the business with what you love allows you to meet really awesome people, and it takes you to journeys and places you'd never even imagined. One of the places, Jake Adams and Vincent Chalias invited me to go diving on the Flores Sea with this guy I never heard of, Isan Dashti from Triton. So we spent 11 days on a liveaboard, diving every day in the beautiful weather, diving on the reefs, drinking at night. Like, it was just amazing. Isan was testing all the water. He was telling me about Triton at night, and we hit it off, and he wanted me to represent his company in the U.S. ICP testing had never been in the U.S. It had never been something, so I brought the first tests into the U.S. Now, a lot of people know ICP testing. So we are still the U.S. distributor. All the Triton stuff goes through my L.A. warehouse. We keep everything in stock. Being able to go pick my own corals with Vincent and Bali. Just little things that just doors open up. When you do right by people, you have integrity, one door opens, the next door opens, the next door, and I didn't design it this way. It just, I have a lot of really good fun stuff. Partners with Julian Sprung on the stacks and sticks that Marco Rocks makes for him.
We just finished our Triton lab now, so all ICP testing is done in LA. And that's something we're really proud of. And this is the view from our office in the Solomon Islands, where we'll be growing our own corals now and empowering the farmers, trying to create a sustainable business model for others to replicate, empowering the villagers, and it's going to be really amazing. And then in my home tank, it's a renovated garage with a Waterbox tank with a mangrove. I've got a 72-inch peninsula, and they're going to be connected together, and it's going to be really awesome. And my last slide is to always be kind to marine life, and especially people like Joe Aiello that really are afraid of marine life. He just puts on a whole big bluff. So that's it. I want to thank everyone.
Huge round of applause. Wow. If you are a store owner or anybody in the industry here and you're not inspired by that, I mean, what a story. So thank you. Ran long, but I mean, we wouldn't be doing justice if we didn't open for questions. So who's got questions? Come on, you gotta be kidding me. No one? Nobody. All right.
When you're installing aquariums, where do you feel like, would you rather go glass or acrylic?
It depends on the application. For big tanks and in areas that might get scratched, like children's, where there's children running around, I would do acrylic because you could buff it out. Reef tanks, I always love to do glass because acrylic is a pain to scratch, especially deep tanks. Glass is just easier, and if you don't have to worry about kids possibly scratching the front or people scratching the front, then it's pretty easy to maintain a glass tank without scratching it if you know what you're doing. But for big tanks, big fish-only systems, I like acrylic. And we're not afraid to get in there and buff it or buff the outside. But, yeah.
Who's next? Somebody up here? Yeah.
So you said you get your first shipment in this Tuesday?
Yes.
So how can I be there to pick out first?
Well, you need a plane ticket because we're in Southern California and we're in Florida. So you need, what's that?
I'll work that out.
Come on out, yeah. Supposed to arrive, it's actually supposed to come in Saturday, but there's a connection through Fiji and there was a 4-hour delay, so we decided not to put it on the plane because then it would get stuck in Fiji. So these are the fun parts, you know, getting through all the red tape, getting the permits and building the facility. That was the challenging part. It took over a year. We've got 4 guys there. But now, finally, Tuesday, and Tim Kelly, I can't thank him enough, he's been living there, and it's not easy to live. I went there for 2 weeks. I couldn't wait to get home. He's my partner there. So, yeah, Tuesday.
Any spoilers? What are you bringing in?
There's just a little assortment of stuff, beautiful millies. That area is known for the millies. Right now, we don't have the farm production up yet. We just didn't have the funds to get that going, so we're going to focus on wild right now, but really, really nice millies, beautiful sinarinas, red with electric green centers. Prices should all be reasonable. It should be good. Yep.
Great. Who else? Anybody? Last opportunity. All right, you're lost. Joe, thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you.
And just for those of you who don't, so if anybody was at RAP Chicago, this is where I first had the opportunity to meet Joe, at the throwdown of the century, where he was pitted up against Terrence from Neptune Systems in a scape-off, which, because Terrence is here, we can tell you that he did cheat. Joe was the rightful winner. And, oh, this is streaming live? What? So, no. So they're going hand. So if you're going to RAP Orlando, it's going to be a throwdown again. It's a rematch. And Joe's coming prepared this time. That's it.
And I'm going to have somebody distract him, and I'm going to switch it like Indiana Jones. Just switch it. And he's going to turn around. He's going to be like, how'd you build that? And I'm going to have him stop the clock, and I'm going to win.
Boom.
That's my
there
plan.
it is. I got your back this time.
Cool.
I'll run the distraction.
All right.
A huge round of applause again, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome talk.